Hi, you are on the Revenge Eddie channel.
I didn't think a strip of blue tape could change my life. The sheriff smoothed it over the edge of the paper, palm flattening it in this slow, official way, like blessing a wound. I stood in the doorway, barefoot on the cool steps, trying to remember if I'd set the coffee maker to auto-start. Somewhere in the living room the dryer thumped a lost button against the drum. Everything was normal until a stranger, wearing a badge and a polite expression, taped a summons to my house. I'm David, 38, born in Ohio and living in Colorado now. If you search my name in court records you'll find it blinking back like a warning light. The notice said a bank I didn't use was foreclosing on a loan I'd never taken, secured by a deed I'd never signed, notarized by a person I'd never met. 10 days until the auction. 10 days to hopscotch across a minefield I hadn't even known was under my feet. I thought of my son first. Ethan is 8, small for his age, with eyelashes so long they shadow his cheeks when he sleeps. We have a custody arrangement, weekdays with me, weekends with his mom, Jenna. Divorce sanded us down to a polite truce. The house mattered because it was the one stable thing I could hand Ethan. Here, kid, some promises don't slide around. The sheriff handed me a duplicate copy and said I needed to contact the trustee. He didn't do the bad cop routine. He looked tired. I thanked him, as if he'd brought takeout instead of a notice that our life had been mortgaged by a ghost, and shut the door. I read the document 3 times. The dates didn't make sense. The loan originated the previous April. The deed of trust had my name, my address, even the crooked loop I make on the V of David. It's disorienting to see your own handwriting betray you. Fraud is something that happens to people who click the wrong links. That's what I told myself while I waited on hold with the bank. 15 minutes later, a woman with a voice like 3 shots of espresso told me there was a copy of my driver's license on file. Sir, the application was completed in person. In person where? At our downtown branch. I wasn't there, I said. I was working. Do you have documentation? I had time cards, emails, GPS pings from a company truck. I'm a maintenance supervisor at a hospital. I fix boilers and doors and the little things that make big things work. My job is noticing when a hinge gets stiff before the door refuses to open. I hadn't noticed my life squeaking to a stop at all. The bank emailed a fraud packet. I spent the evening filling it out while Ethan did his reading homework on the ottoman, legs kicking the air. He read about a boy who learned to ride a bike. I typed answers about how someone learned to ride my signature. Around 9, Jenna texted to ask if I could swap weekends because her sister was visiting. I hovered, wanting to tell her, wanting to wrap both hands around the small moment and beg it to stay small. Instead I typed, sure. The first crack in the ice showed up 2 days later, when the notary's name led me to a UPS store 3 miles from my house. I took my lunch break and drove there, the fraud packet buckled in the passenger seat like a child. The manager frowned at the document and said their notary had quit 6 months earlier. But that's her stamp, I said. He shrugged. Stamps don't quit. He remembered a man who came in with a woman, both on edge. The woman kept checking the door. They asked for a quiet corner, he said, like they didn't want to be seen. My palms sweated all the way back to the hospital. The boiler room hummed like it always hums. Nelson, one of my guys, asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. He handed me a wrench and a problem with a radiator. It felt like mercy to have a thing I could fix with metal and force. I met with a lawyer the next day because Google said that's what you do when your life slides into italics. His office smelled like coffee and paper. He wore a tie with tiny basketballs on it. He flipped through the notice, the deed, the loan file the bank had emailed. Sometimes, he said, it's a family member. My parents are in Florida, I said, too fast. My sister's in Seattle. A partner then. We've been divorced for 2 years. I said it like you'd say a weather fact. Sunny, with a chance of nothing left to lose. He leaned back. Not accusing, just telling you where the data lands. People who know your life can counterfeit it easier than strangers. He asked about my mail, my passwords, my documents. I thought about the shoebox in my closet with the social security card and Ethan's birth certificate, and how sometimes I left it under the bed because I'm human and not a safe. He explained the timing. Even if we prove the loan's fraudulent, the foreclosure clock doesn't stop unless a judge says so. We'll try for a temporary restraining order. He scribbled numbers, retainer fees, the cost of the hour I was using to watch the floor drop. That night I sat at the edge of Ethan's bed and watched him breathe. He keeps a little flashlight under his pillow to read after lights out. He thinks I don't know. I took it and placed it on the nightstand and he flinched awake. Dad? It's okay, I said, and then I said the thing I wish I'd said earlier. Hey, kiddo, there's a problem with the house, but I'm going to fix it. His eyes were heavy. Like the heater. Just like that, I lied. The hearing was set for Thursday morning. I wore the only suit I own. The judge was the kind of woman you'd always imagine had a pen in her hand. The bank's lawyer showed up late, glancing at his phone. He treated my life like a file. My lawyer argued that this was fraud on its face, that harm would be irreparable. The judge sighed, pinched the bridge of her nose, and granted a 2-week stay. It felt like being pulled from a rip current onto a rock that wasn't dry, just not drowning. On Friday, Jenna dropped Ethan off and lingered by the door. She looked at the blue tape still stuck to the frame like a rash. What's that? Paperwork. I wanted to keep the truce. I wanted to keep from saying the thing running circles in my skull. You want some coffee? She shook her head. I have to go. Then, like she'd rehearsed it, she said, I'm sorry, and turned away. It took me a second to understand that sorry was an answer to a question I hadn't asked yet. I followed her to the porch. For what? Jenna pushed hair behind her ear, that old nervous tick. I didn't think it would go this far. My hours got cut last spring. I was behind on rent and she swallowed. I knew the notary at the UPS store. She owed me a favor. I signed your name, David. I'm not saying it was right. I was drowning. I remember the sound of the street right then, the soft shush of tires. Someone jogged by with a golden retriever. I felt two things at once, the animal surge of anger, how dare you, how could you, and the memory of the years when we weren't a divorce, when Ethan was a toddler and we were still stupid enough to think love solves math. You forged a deed of trust, I said, because naming it held me together. I thought I could make the payments until I got back on my feet, she said. I did, for a while. Then the car needed a transmission. It snowballed. Tears made her voice high and thin. I told myself I'd fix it before anyone got hurt. Ethan lives here, I said. Someone's already hurt. We sat at opposite ends of the porch like bad actors in a play. She kept twisting her ring finger though she wasn't wearing a ring. I'll tell the bank, she said. I'll tell them it was me. They won't care, I said, hating how flat I sounded. They care about the loan performing. She wiped her face with the cuff of her sweater. I don't know what else to do. I didn't either. But I knew what I wouldn't do, turn my son's life into a moving truck box labeled MISC. I told Jenna to give me every text thread, every receipt, every deposit. I forwarded them to my lawyer. He whistled when he saw the chain of payments from her account to the loan servicer, the notes she'd left in her banking app, due Friday. Don't forget. Fraud leaves fingerprints even when it thinks it's wearing gloves. The bank didn't care about feelings. They filed a motion to dissolve the stay. My lawyer pushed back. In the meantime, we found a police detective who specialized in financial crimes. She had a desk crowded with paper like a snowdrift. After 2 meetings and 3 calls, she said what I had started to believe, this is criminal. She would forward the case to the DA. My lawyer told me not to get my hopes up. I didn't have hopes. I had a kid and a clock. I started packing the garage. Not because I was giving up, but because I refused to be surprised by a date. I packed the baby car seat we'd saved, the tools my father left me when he moved to Florida, a box of Ethan's school projects with glitter that will outlive us all. I labeled each one with a thick black marker. There's something about choosing what you keep that makes you understand who you are when life is a fire. You pick the non-burning parts and hold them close. Ethan asked if we were moving. We might, I said. But we'll move together. That mattered more than the address. He looked at the wall where we'd penciled his height and frowned. Can we take the door frame? I laughed and then cried in this ugly, surprised way. Yeah, I said. If we have to. We took a picture, just in case. 2 weeks became 4 because courts move like glaciers unless you're under them. My lawyer negotiated a loan modification I didn't want on a loan I didn't take, just to stop the bleeding while the DA decided whether to press charges. Jenna showed up for every meeting. She signed statements. She looked wrecked. We were polite because that's what you are when your kid's heart is the table you're operating on. You don't throw instruments. On a Tuesday in June, the judge denied the bank's motion. The detective called the following Monday. The DA would charge Jenna with forgery and identity theft, but she'd likely get probation if she pled. Justice should feel like a light turning on. It felt like a bulb humming. I told the detective I didn't want her to go to jail. I wanted my house and my name back. I wanted my son not to look at the door and wonder if tape meant loss. We settled. The bank rolled the fraudulent loan into a new one in my name, ugly math, but survivable. Jenna agreed to a restitution plan she could actually pay. We told Ethan there had been a mistake with the bank and we'd fixed it. He asked if we could still go camping in July. We said yes. After he went to bed, I told Jenna I didn't know if I could forgive her but that I would try not to hate her. She nodded. That's fair. I changed all my passwords. I bought a safe that could survive a house fire and the world's worst weeks. I put Ethan's flashlight in there too for one night as a joke, came to my senses, and put it back. We went camping. He learned to make a fire with one match. We lay on our backs in the canyon and counted satellites sliding across the dark. When we got home, the door frame was still there, pencil marks like a barcode of our time. I spilled rice making dinner and stepped on it later barefoot, sharp little stars. I kept the new payment spreadsheet on the fridge where the soccer schedule used to go. On Sundays I sat with bills and coffee and treated our life like a machine that could be maintained if I paid attention. Some nights I still wake at 3 a.m., sure I can hear tape peeling and a knock starting. When I do, I get up and walk the house like a guard, touching the safe, checking the back door, standing in the hallway outside Ethan's room while he breathes. There's a type of faith in that, not faith that nothing bad will happen again, but faith that when it does, I'll meet it at the door, awake and breathing. A month after the settlement, Ethan's school held a father-son breakfast. We ate pancakes at long folding tables. There was a raffle for a tool set and I won. I raised the cardboard box like a trophy and Ethan laughed in that unself-conscious way kids have before they learn to be embarrassed by their dads. On the drive home, he said, "You always fix things," and instead of arguing, I said, "I try." He nodded like that was enough. It isn't a movie ending. The mortgage is heavier than it should be. My credit score wears a bruise. Jenna and I speak in sentences measured with spoons. Trust is a muscle I keep trying to use even though it aches. But every night, when Ethan is with me, I read him a chapter from a book about a boy and his dog. When he's with Jenna, I text him a picture of the door frame and ask if he thinks he grew since Monday. He always says yes. Kids know how to choose hope like it's obvious. If you're reading this and you feel that cold cutout shape leaving your body because someone turned your life into paperwork, here's what I learned. There's a difference between what happens to you and what you let define you. Fight like your name is a house and your kid is asleep inside. Get the lawyer even if your stomach turns at the cost. Tell the truth even when it implicates the people you once promised everything. Pack boxes if you have to, but label them like you'll unpack in a better place. And when the knock finally comes, meet it standing up.